Hi there. I am so happy you found your way to Starlet Sinister tonight. I know you are here to escape the noise, so here is my promise. Only few short ads in the first 10 minutes, but after that, silence. The rest of the video is completely ad-free so you can sleep undisturbed. I've dug deep to bring you fresh stories that you won't find anywhere else. I wanted to bring you something real. If that sounds good to you, a sub would help me a lot. Before you close your eyes, let me know one thing in the comments. What is the weather like outside your window right now? I love imagining where you all are listening from. Now, get comfortable. Let the dark in. Here is story number 1. The snow had been falling so softly that I didn't notice when it started. I only saw it once. The porch light came on, flakes drifting down like slow thoughts. The house felt quieter than usual, as if it was listening back. I was awake again, sitting at the small table by the window. Everyone else in the house had gone to sleep hours ago. I stayed up most nights now, not because I wanted to, but because sleep felt like a place I didn't trust anymore. My name is Nora Hale. I live in a small town in northern Vermont called Ashfield. Winter stays longer here than it should. Snow piles up and forgets to leave, and people learn how to live around it. I work mornings at the town archive, a narrow building that smells like paper and dust. I'm not a reporter. I don't publish anything. I just sort, label, and quietly keep track of things most people stopped caring about. I started doing that work after my sister moved out. She didn't leave the town. She just stopped being part of my days. We still lived close, but something between us went thin and careful. I have a bad habit of avoiding hard talks. I tell myself there will be time later. Later has a way of closing its door. That winter began like any other. Snow. Silence. Short days that blurred together. The archive heater clicked on and off, never quite warming the room. One afternoon, I found a file where it didn't belong. It was tucked between land records from the 1970s. The folder was newer than the others, pale yellow instead of brown. There was no label on the tab, no date or note inside, just a single page resting there, too clean to belong. I didn't think much of it at first. Mistakes happen. Hands move faster than memory. I set it aside to check later. When I opened it again, there was only one name written neatly at the top. Clara Wynne. No address. No time. Nothing else. I searched the database. No birth record. No school record. No death notice. The name did not exist anywhere else in town history. I closed the folder and told myself it was unfinished work. Still, I slipped it back where I found it instead of filing it properly. That night, the snow came down heavier. I watched it from my bedroom window as it erased the street little by little. It made the world feel smaller and far away. I dreamed of shelves bending under weight they couldn't show. When I woke up, my jaw ached from clenching. The next day, the folder was back on my desk. I knew I hadn't moved it there. I checked the handwriting again. The ink looked fresh, like it hadn't dried fully. When I touched the paper, it felt warmer than the room. I asked my coworker Miles if he had seen it. He shook his head and said maybe I had forgotten. For the first time, that answer scared me. Over the next week, more folders appeared, always blank except for a single name, always written in the same careful hand. I started keeping a private list in my notebook, just names and the day I found them. I didn't tell anyone. Writing it down felt safer than saying it out loud. The names didn't repeat. None of them showed up anywhere else either. One evening, as I was closing the archive, I noticed footprints outside the back door. Fresh ones pressed into clean snow. They stopped right at the wall and didn't continue. I stood there longer than I meant to. Snow kept falling, slowly filling the prints in again, like the ground was undoing them. At home, I tried calling my sister. The phone rang until it stopped. I didn't leave a message. The next morning, one of the folders held a name I recognized. It was my sister's. My hands went numb before my thoughts caught up. The letters looked wrong, like they had been copied from memory instead of written fresh. I searched everything. Cabinets, systems, old backups. There was no record of her at all. I walked outside into the cold and stood there until my teeth shook. Snow creaked under my boots with each small step. I told myself there had to be a simple reason. A delay. A mistake I could fix. That afternoon, someone new came into the archive. A woman I had never seen before, wrapped in a long coat dusted with snow. She walked straight to the counter like she knew where she was. She said her name was Elin. Her voice was soft but steady. She asked if we kept personal histories. Not records. Histories. I said we kept what people left behind. She smiled, like that answer mattered. Elin came back the next day, and the next. Always near closing time. She never checked anything out. She just stood near the shelves and watched. On the fourth day, she asked if I had noticed things going missing. I didn't answer. My silence felt loud. She nodded anyway. She said it starts with paper, but it doesn't end there. That night, sleep wouldn't come. I kept thinking about the folders and the warmth of the pages. When I tried to picture my sister's face, it blurred at the edges. Snow pressed against the windows like static. The next morning, the archive felt different. Quieter, but not calm. Like a held breath. Elin was already there, standing near my desk. One of the folders lay open between us. "You're closer than most," she said. "That's why you can still see them." I asked what she meant. She told me the town didn't like loose stories, things without edges. When someone stopped fitting, the town adjusted. I laughed once, short and sharp. She didn't smile. She opened her coat and pulled out a thin notebook. The pages were filled edge to edge with names. "I write them," she said. "It slows things down." I asked what happened as she stopped. She looked toward the window where snow drifted sideways. She said they finished fading. The heater clicked, then went quiet. Later that day, Miles asked if I was feeling okay. He said I looked tired. He asked if I had family nearby. I said I had a sister. He frowned slightly. He said he thought I was an only child. I left early. I stood outside my sister's apartment building for a long time. Her name wasn't on the mailbox anymore. That night, the snow fell harder. Streets vanished. Sounds softened. Elin came to my house just after midnight. She stood on the porch, snow gathering on her shoulders. She said it was getting worse. More names were settling faster. She handed me her notebook. It felt heavier than it should. "I can't hold it alone anymore," she said. Inside were names I knew. Neighbors, teachers, the woman from the bakery, and my sister's name, written darker than the rest. I asked why me. She said some people remember by accident. Others remember because they care too much. We sat at the kitchen table writing names while the snow piled higher outside. The house creaked as it cooled. At some point, the lights flickered. Elin stopped writing. "They're close," she said. I asked her she meant. She said the part of the town that likes things neat. When she left, the notebook stayed on my table. After that, I stayed awake until morning. I wrote my sister's name again, slower this time, saying each letter in my head. Outside, a plow scraped clean lines through the street. I don't know how long this will work. I don't know what happens when the notebook fills. I only know the snow keeps falling, the names keep coming, and I am still awake to see them. The notebook felt heavier on the second night. Not in my hands exactly, more like in my chest, the way a breath waits before letting go. I stayed at the kitchen table long after the house went quiet, watching snow stack against the windows. Morning came without warning. I must have fallen asleep with my head on my arms because my neck hurt when I woke. The notebook was still open. My sister's name was written twice. I said it out loud once before standing. The sound felt thin, like it might tear if I said it again. At the archive, Miles waved and asked if I wanted coffee. I said yes, even though I usually don't drink it. I wanted something warm to hold. I watched him walk away and tried to remember the last time my sister stood in this room. I could picture her coat on the back of a chair, but I couldn't remember the color. That scared me more than the empty folders. Elin didn't come in that day. The shelves felt too tall. The silence felt closer. I caught myself checking blank spaces between folders like something might be hiding there. By noon, 3 new folders sat on my desk. One name belonged to the woman who lived 2 houses down from me, the one who shoveled her steps every morning, even while it snowed. I wrote her name into the notebook during lunch. My hand shook, then stopped all at once when I finished. That afternoon, I went to my sister's apartment again. The door was unlocked. I stood in the hallway before going in. Her place looked wrong, too neat. Pictures were gone. Couch cushions were turned slightly, like someone had sat there but didn't stay. In the bedroom, the closet was empty. I sat on the floor and pressed my palms into the carpet. I tried to remember the sound of her laugh. Only the beginning came back. That night, Ellen returned. She stood in the archive doorway near closing. Snow melted into dark spots around her boots. She looked more tired than before. "You wrote," she said. I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. She asked how many names I added. I told her. She looked at the shelves, counting something I couldn't see. We locked up together. Outside, the wind pushed snow sideways. As we walked, she told me the town wasn't a thing. It was a habit. Something people did together without noticing. When enough people stop noticing, she said, the habit starts choosing. I asked what happened to the chosen ones. She paused. Some stay close, some go thin. That night, I dreamed snow fell upward. The ground beneath me felt hollow. When I woke, a new folder sat on my bedside table. The name inside was mine. I went to the archive early. Miles wasn't there yet. The building felt too open. Ellen arrived soon after. She closed her eyes when she saw the folder. "It's faster now," she said. I asked what that meant for me. She said writing my own name wouldn't help. It would only soften the edges. She showed me a page from her notebook. A few names written lightly. "These were anchors," she said. I asked what made them different. "They were remembered by more than one person," she said, quietly. That afternoon, I went to the bakery. The woman behind the counter said my name without pause. I almost cried. I stayed longer than usual. I listened. When I left, I wrote her name again. That night, the notebook felt lighter, but the town felt restless. Sirens passed without stopping. Lights flickered. People stood at windows, then looked away. Ellen came to my house after dark. She looked nervous. "They're noticing you," she said. We walked streets I'd known all my life. Some houses looked flat, like stage sets. At the edge of town, the air felt tight. We stopped where a playground used to be. The ground was smooth. Ellen pressed her hand into the snow and whispered a name. The snow shifted. I felt a pull, away from myself. I said my sister's name out loud. Twice. 3 times. The pull eased. "You're holding," Ellen said. She told me she had been an anchor once. Someone else had remembered her when she went then. "Thee got tired," she said. On the way back, a light was on in my sister's apartment. I stopped. Elin waited. I climbed the stairs slowly. The door was open. My sister sat at the table. She looked real, but the room leaned toward her. She smiled a second late. "You've been busy," she said. I asked where she'd been. She said she was waiting for things to settle. Her hands were too still. Behind me, Ellen cleared her throat. My sister frowned at her. "She doesn't belong here." Ellen said, "Neither do you." The room felt smaller. I smelled paper and cold air. I placed the notebook on the table. I said my sister's name again, slower. Her face flickered. She took my hand. Her fingers were cold. "I don't want to go," she said. I told her I knew. The light buzzed. Helen stepped closer and waited. I felt the pull again, stronger now, like the town was breathing in. I opened my mouth, unsure which name would come out. Story number 2. The rain had already been falling for hours before I noticed how quiet the house was. Not peaceful quiet, the kind that feels unfinished, like someone stepped out of a room and forgot to come back. I stood by the window and waited for the sound to settle. My name is Jack Holloway. I came back to Oregon at the start of spring, when the clouds hang low and the trees smell like wet bark. School was done. My head was full and tired. I wanted a place where no one asked me what I was doing next. My parents' town sat close to the coast, far enough that the ocean felt like a rumor. Rain came easy there and stayed longer than it should. The first morning home, my mother cooked breakfast like she always did. Pancakes a little too thick, steam rising slow. My father sat at the table with his coffee, turning pages he didn't really read. Nothing had changed, and that made my chest loosen. He asked about my plans without pushing. I told him I needed rest and would figure things out soon. That was when he mentioned his friend, a man I barely remembered. Someone from years ago, always dressed too neatly for this town. He owned a place in the hills, far from everything. He needed someone to stay there for a while, not to guard it, just to be present. The pay sounded unreal. Enough to fix my car, enough to breathe for a few months. I said yes before thinking too hard. When I called the man later that day, his voice came smooth and slow. He asked if I minded being alone. I said I didn't. He told me the house had rules. Simple ones. Windows checked at night. Floors kept clean. Some rooms left alone. He said it casually, like it didn't matter. I agreed to all of it. The drive up took longer than I expected. Roads narrowed, trees closed in, rain followed me the whole way. My phone lost signal early. That should have bothered me more than it did. When I reached the gate, I sat in the car for a full minute. The metal bars were tall and dark, wet with rain. Beyond them, the road curved away like it didn't want to be seen all at once. The house appeared slowly, glass and wood tucked into the slope of the hill. It didn't look abandoned. It looked carefully kept. The owner met me outside. His suit stood out against the gray woods, too clean for the mud near his shoes. He smiled often, but his eyes stayed careful. Inside, the house smelled faintly of polish and cold air. Everything had a place. Furniture felt chosen, not lived in. He walked me through quickly. Talked about heating, water, timing. When he reached the door at the end of the hall, he stopped. "Nothing you need down here," he said lightly. "Old things." I nodded. I didn't ask. When he left, the sound of his car faded faster than it should have. The woods closed in again. The rain filled the space he left behind. I spent the afternoon moving slowly from room to room, touching things, opening curtains, letting the place settle around me. Outside, the trees shifted with the wind. Branches rubbed together like they were remembering something. Near the back edge of the property, I noticed a fence, old wood, uneven boards. Beyond it stood another structure. It wasn't part of the property, at least not cleanly. The shape of it looked tired, roof bent, walls darkened by time and weather. I didn't cross the fence. I just stood there while rain soaked my jacket. The empty space between the buildings felt wrong. That night, the house made sounds I couldn't place. Not loud, just small shifts. The hum of systems, the pop of cooling surfaces. I slept lightly, woke often. Each time the rain was still there. The next day passed without trouble. I cleaned, I cooked, I read. I avoided the back windows without deciding to. When evening came, the light faded fast. The house felt taller somehow. I noticed the smell first. Not smoke, something old and damp, like rain trapped where it shouldn't be. It came and went. Before bed, I checked the windows like I'd been told. Everything was locked. Everything looked right. From my room, I could see the trees shifting slowly. Moonlight caught in wet leaves. I stood there longer than I meant to. That was when I saw the light. It wasn't bright. It didn't move fast. Just a small, steady glow near the fence line. I waited for it to fade. It didn't. I turned off my lamp and watched from the dark. The light stayed in place like it was waiting. Eventually, it drifted back toward the trees and vanished. I didn't sleep much after that. Morning brought relief that felt thin. Daylight made everything look manageable again. I laughed at myself once while making coffee. Still, I didn't go near the fence. By the third night, the pattern had settled. Quiet days, long evenings, a house that felt more alert after dark. I started writing things down, not because I was scared, but because I didn't want to forget details. The light came back that night, closer this time, just at the edge of the yard. I stayed still and watched. It didn't approach. It didn't retreat. I had the strange thought that it wasn't there for the house. It was there for me. The rain grew heavier after midnight. The sound filled every space. Somewhere below, something shifted. I sat on the floor by my bed and counted breaths until my hands stopped shaking. When morning came, the light was gone. The yard looked untouched. I considered leaving then. Backing up, making an excuse, but something about the quiet held me there. That afternoon, I found a notebook in a drawer I hadn't opened before. It wasn't new. Pages were filled with neat handwriting, names and dates spaced carefully. They weren't mine. I closed it without reading more than I had to. Outside, the rain slowed. The woods waited. That evening, as the sky dimmed again, I felt the house settle into itself. I stood by the window watching the dark gather and understood something. Whatever was out there wasn't rushing. It had time. The notebook stayed where I left it, closed and face down on the desk. I didn't move it all day. I kept telling myself it was just an old thing someone forgot, but my eyes kept drifting back to it, like it was breathing. Outside, the rain slowed to a thin mist. The woods felt closer than before. Trees leaned in, dark and wet, their tops lost in low clouds. I made soup and ate standing up. Sitting felt wrong, like if I stayed still too long, the house would notice. The quiet pressed against my ears and didn't let go. When night came, everything felt heavier. I checked the windows again, even though I already had. Each lock clicked into place with a sound too small for the job. I avoided the back of the house, but the house didn't avoid me. Every creak felt closer. Every sound lasted longer than it should. Upstairs, the air felt colder. It was like the warmth chose to stay downstairs. In my room, I kept the lamp low and didn't turn on the main light. My phone still showed no signal. I thought about leaving, about packing the car and driving until the road felt normal again. I stayed where I was. After midnight, the smell came back. Not strong, just present. It drifted in and out, like a door opening somewhere else. I stood near the window without touching the curtain. Cold came off the glass, even from a few inches away. The yard looked dark but not empty. The light returned. It was closer this time, near the edge of the deck. The same deep red glow. Steady. Patient. My breathing slowed without asking it to. My body wanted to stay still. I lowered myself to the floor and crawled closer, careful not to make noise. I pulled the curtain back just enough to see. The man stood there again, taller or maybe clearer. His coat hung too straight. The lantern in his hand stained the deck red. He didn't look around. He looked at the house like it was already open. I waited. Minutes passed. My legs went numb. When he lifted his head, it felt like the house leaned forward too. The lantern rose. The red light slid up the wall, slow and careful. When it reached my window, I let go of the curtain and fell back. I sat there and counted my heartbeat. I didn't hear footsteps. I didn't hear glass. I heard nothing at all. The tapping started soft. At first it sounded like rain. Then it came again, slow and steady. I pressed my hands over my ears, but I could still feel it. The tapping moved, sliding across the glass. When it stopped, I looked. His face filled the window, not pressed flat, hovering close. His skin looked stretched. His eyes glowed faint red. His neck bent and lengthened, sliding down the side of the house into the dark. I couldn't scream. The sound stayed stuck in my chest. He smiled wider. His teeth caught the red light. One long finger tapped once more, gentle and calm. I scrambled back and hit the wall. Pain flared but didn't matter. I reached the door and pulled it open. The hallway was dark. Something moved at the far end, low and slow. The smell grew stronger. Smoke rolled along the ceiling. I turned and ran for the stairs. My feet slipped, and I grabbed the railing. The house felt different now, like it shifted while I wasn't looking. Downstairs, smoke curled out of the vents. My eyes burned. I covered my mouth and tried not to cough. I unlocked the front door and pulled it open. Cold air rushed in. Something slammed into the railing. His head snapped forward on that long neck and stopped inches from my face. His eyes burned brighter. Smoke poured from his mouth. "Stay," he said. I fell backward and slammed the door shut. The lock clicked. I backed away until I hit the counter. The smoke thickened. Windows disappeared behind gray haze. The house felt smaller. I remembered the rules. The basement door waited under the stairs. I ran to it, slid the bolt, and pulled it open. Cold air rushed up. The smell changed to dirt and paper. I went down fast and locked the door behind me. Above me, something moved. Heavy footsteps, a dragging sound. A voice called my name. It sounded like my father. "Jack," it said softly. "Come upstairs." I froze. The voice shifted, thinning into something wrong. "I know you're there," it whispered. I slid to the floor. A small window near the ceiling let in weak gray light. That's when I saw the boxes. They lined the walls, neatly stacked. Names and dates written, Merker. I opened one. Clothes folded clean. Another held books. Another shoes. Understanding came slow and heavy. This house wasn't meant to be watched. It was meant to be fed. Tapping came at the basement door. Slow. Patient. "I can hear your heart," the voice said. The door shook. Dust fell. I grabbed the shovel from the corner. The wood cracked. A pale hand pushed through. Fingers bent the wrong way. I swung and hit it. Smoke poured through the gap. Thick and choking, my lungs burned. The door burst open. He stood at the top of the stairs. His body stayed there as his neck stretched down. "Mr. Vance sends his regards," he said. The red light filled my vision. My thoughts slowed. I thought of home, of rain on the roof, of quiet mornings. The lantern tipped forward. Dark closed in. Story number 3. The sound that woke me wasn't loud. It was the absence of one. I noticed it because the house had a habit of breathing at night. Clicks, sighs, the soft thud of pipes cooling down. That night, everything stopped. No hum, no tick, no settling. I was already awake. Sleep had been skipping me for months. Rain slid down the windows in thin, slow lines. March rain in coastal Maine always felt tired, like it had been falling too long. I sat at the small desk near the back window, sorting old envelopes, not for any reason, just something to do with my hands. People think grief arrives loudly. For me, it came as quiet habits that wouldn't leave. I checked the clock without meaning to. 1:11 a.m., the green number said. "My name is Eleanor Finch. Most people call me Ellie. I moved back to Harrow Cove after my mother passed. The house was mine now, though it still felt borrowed. She had been sick a long time, long enough that the waiting became a routine. I stayed up nights because daytime reminded me too much of before. Night felt neutral, empty in a way that didn't argue back. The rain paused. Not ended, just paused. That's when the silence felt wrong, like a held breath. I turned my chair slightly, listening. The house didn't respond. The clock blinked and went dark. I didn't remember it being unplugged. I stood, joints stiff, and walked into the kitchen. The floor was cold through my socks. The kettle sat on the stove where I'd left it earlier. Cold, untouched. I placed my palm against the counter. The surface felt colder than it should have. I told myself the temperature dropped. Spring nights near the water do that. The back door window showed only black glass. No reflection, no rain. I checked the time again. 1:11 still. My mother used to say numbers liked to repeat when they wanted attention. I never believed her. I reached for my phone. No signal, no time displayed. That should have bothered me more than it did. Instead, I felt oddly calm. A faint smell drifted through the room. Salt and old wood. The same smell as the pier where my brother worked summers. The pier that collapsed years ago. I leaned against the sink, breathing slow. Memory has a way of arriving without asking. Daniel had loved the water, not swimming, just standing near it. He used to carve small things from driftwood, little shapes he never finished. One night, after too much beer, he said unfinished things were closer to the truth. I didn't ask what he meant. The sound came from the hallway then. Not footsteps, something softer. A scrape, maybe. Wood against wood. I didn't call out, didn't move. The hallway light flicked on by itself, dim, low. I stood there, counting breaths. 1, 2, 3. The air felt thinner near the doorway. Not colder, just empty. I stepped into the hall. The light buzzed once, then steadied. At the far end, near my mother's old room, something rested on the floor, small, pale. I crouched slowly, knees complaining. My hand shook when I reached for it. It was a piece of wood, smooth, curved, shaped by careful hands, not driftwood, worked wood. I turned it over. Tiny marks lined one edge, not words, not symbols, just notches. The smell grew stronger when I held it. Salt, dust, time. I didn't remember bringing it inside. Didn't remember seeing it before. Behind me, the hallway light went out. The dark didn't rush in. It settled. The clock in the kitchen clicked back on. One sharp sound. I looked at my phone again. 1:12. I carried the wood to the table and sat down. The chair felt warmer than it should have. I waited for fear to arrive. It didn't. Instead, a heavy sadness pressed in, the kind that makes your chest ache without warning. Daniel used to leave things half-finished on my desk. Said I'd understand later. I ran my thumb along the notches. They fit my skin perfectly. The rain started again, light at first, then steadier. I stayed at the table until the sky lightened. Didn't sleep, didn't move. Morning brought sound back into the house. Birds, pipes, the low rumble of the fridge. The clock read 6004. Normal numbers again. The piece of wood still sat where I left it. Solid, real. I carried it upstairs to the spare room. The room I avoided. Daniel's things were boxed there. I hadn't opened them since the funeral. The first box held old notebooks. The second, clothes that smelled like dust. In the third box, wrapped in a towel, was his carving kit. Blades dulled from use. I didn't plan to look for anything specific. My hands just knew where to go. At the bottom of the box, beneath loose sketches, lay a half-finished object. The same curve, the same notches. My breath caught without sound. The room felt smaller. I placed the found piece against the unfinished one. They fit together cleanly, not snapped. Completed, a warmth spread through my fingers. Gentle, brief. The rain stopped again outside. Too quickly. I sat on the floor, the two pieces in my lap. Tears came late like they always did. Daniel had never finished anything. Except this. I didn't hear him. Didn't see anything. But the house felt fuller, occupied. I stayed there until noon, until hunger forced me up. I placed the finished piece on the windowsill, where light could touch it. That night, I slept for the first time in weeks, dreamless, heavy. The clock didn't stop again. The light stayed steady. But sometimes when the rain pauses too long, I smell salt and old wood. The piece on the sill stays warm even in the cold, as if it remembers hands. I haven't decided what to do with it yet. Some things ask for time. The warmth didn't fade when morning passed. It lingered in the house like a promise no one had spoken out loud. I noticed it first in the kitchen, where the air usually felt hollow. That day, it felt held together. I tried to tell myself it was relief, that something had finally shifted after weeks of wait. The finished piece stayed on the windowsill. Light moved across it slowly, like it was learning the shape. I didn't touch it all morning. Some things ask to be seen before they are held. Outside, the tide pulled back from the rocks. The sound carried through the open window, steady and calm. I made coffee and forgot to drink it. It went cold beside me. Every room felt watched, but not in a way that scared me, more like being remembered. I walked through the house barefoot, checking corners without meaning to. The hallway no longer felt thin. My mother's door stood open. I hadn't noticed when I opened it. Her room smelled faintly of soap and paper, the way it always had. I stood there longer than I planned. Grief has a way of stretching minutes. On her dresser sat a small stack of mail I hadn't sorted yet. Old habits die quietly. Beneath it, tucked near the wall, was something new. Or maybe something I hadn't seen before. Another piece of wood rested there, smaller than the first. My throat tightened before my hands moved. I picked it up slowly. This one was rougher, edges unfinished. It didn't fit the shape on the windowsill. Not yet. I carried it with me as I moved through the house. Didn't know why. The rain came back just after noon. Soft at first, then steady. I sat at the table again, the two pieces laid out between my hands. They didn't touch. Daniel used to say you couldn't rush wood. It remembered every cut. I hadn't thought of that in years. The memory arrived whole. I tried to eat something. Food tasted flat. The clock behaved itself all afternoon. Normal numbers. Normal sounds. That almost disappointed me. Almost. As evening crept in, the light changed color. Gray turned blue. I carried both pieces upstairs and set them on the bed. The room felt smaller with them there. I lay back without meaning to, stared at the ceiling. Sleep came fast. Too fast. In the dream, the house was full of water, not flooding, standing. Furniture floated just above the floor. Nothing touched the ground. Daniel stood at the end of the hall, dry, still. He didn't speak. He held something out. When I reached for it, the dream slipped away, like water through fingers. I woke before midnight. The room was dark. The rain had stopped again, too cleanly. I sat up, listening. The house breathed. From downstairs came a soft tap, then another, not a knock, more like a reminder. I carried the larger piece down with me, left the smaller one behind. The kitchen light turned on without complaint, warm yellow. The sound came from the back door, wood against glass. I stood still, heart slow. Fear didn't rush me. On the floor near the door lay the second piece, the rough one. I hadn't brought it with me. I was sure of that. I placed both pieces on the table, side by side. They shifted slightly when I let go, just enough to touch. The air thickened, not cold, just present. The smell of salt returned, stronger this time. My ears filled with a low sound, not noise, pressure. I closed my eyes, waited. The pieces slid together on their own. No snap, no force. They formed a shape I recognized too late, a handle, for a tool Daniel used once, then set aside. My hand shook when I picked it up. It fit my grip perfectly. The clock ticked once, then paused. I didn't look at it, didn't need to. The house felt crowded now, not with bodies, with moments, held all at once. I heard the pier again. Boards creaking underweight. Daniel's laugh carried through the sound, short, unfinished. Tears came without warning, hot and quiet. I know, I whispered, to the room, to myself. The warmth pressed closer, then eased. The The clock resumed, soft and steady. When the sound faded, the handle lay still in my hands. Complete. I set it down carefully. Like it might bruise. The smell lifted. The air thinned. I slept on the couch that night. Dreams stayed away. Morning brought sun through the kitchen window, bright and clean. The handle sat where I left it. Cool now. I carried it back upstairs and placed it in the box with Daniel's tools. It belonged there. The windowsill stayed empty, the first piece gone. I searched every room. It didn't return. Days passed, then weeks. Nothing else moved on its own. The house settled back into itself, but sometimes, when the tide pulls too far back, I hear wood scrape gently against wood. I haven't decided whether to leave the house yet. Some things need to finish settling before you move. At night when the rain pauses just a second too long, I hold my breath and listen, wondering if I should follow the sound or stay exactly where I am, waiting for the next piece to appear, or for the house to finally let go, because the choice feels close now, closer than before, and I know once I decide, there won't be a way to undo it. And that thought stays with me as I sit there in the dark, watching the clock, counting the spaces between the ticks, asking myself whether some things are meant to be completed or if they only exist to keep us standing in the quiet, hands empty, listening for what comes next without ever fully knowing when or if it will arrive. Story number 4. The house did not feel empty when the party ended. It felt crowded in a different way. I noticed it when the music finally stopped. Not right away, but after. Doors closed, cars pulled away, laughter faded into the street. Then even that was gone. What stayed behind was a pressure, like the air had been handled too much. I lay in my bed and listened. The green turtle nightlight hummed softly. My room smelled like wrapping paper and dust, sweet and dry at the same time. The boxes stayed stacked in the corner. They did not move. I watched them until my eyes burned. I was afraid to blink. The silence did not feel calm. It felt watchful. At some point, my body started to hurt from staying still. My legs ached. My neck felt stiff. I told myself I was being silly. Kids imagine things. That thought almost worked. Almost. Then the paper breathed again. Not a rip. Not a tear. A soft sound, like air passing through something thin. Crinkle. My stomach tightened. I pulled the blanket closer to my chin. I stared at the corner. The boxes stayed still. Nothing happened for a long time, long enough for my heartbeat to slow. I wondered if I had dreamed the other part. The kids. The shadows. Maybe my mind had made them up. I was tired, I was little. Just as that thought settled, the sound came back. Closer this time. Rip. It was slow, careful. The sound came from the bottom of the pile, not the top. I saw the movement before I understood it. A shift. A lean. The boxes did not fall. They adjusted. Something slid out from between them. A shape. It rose slowly, like it had all the time in the world, like it was stretching after sitting too long. The green light touched it and disappeared. Like the light was swallowed, the shape stood fully now, small, thin. Then another one followed, stepping out beside it. They stood shoulder to shoulder, both facing the pile. They did not look at me yet. That felt worse. One reached forward and pressed its hand against the box. The paper dented inward. The sound that came out made my skin crawl. A soft scrape. The other tilted its head. I could not see eyes, but I felt attention. My fingers curled into the blanket. I tried not to make noise. The first shape tore the paper slowly. Not like before. This time it peeled it back carefully, like it wanted to see inside without breaking too much. The second one knelt down. It picked up a piece of ribbon that had fallen earlier. It wrapped the ribbon around its fingers. Tight, then tighter. I wanted to scream again, but my voice felt stuck. The room felt colder near the floor. Not freezing, just wrong. I watched the paper pull away from the box. I saw cardboard underneath. The shape paused. Its head turned slightly. It did not look at me. It listened. I held my breath. My chest burned. The other shape stood up. It took a step toward my bed. The floor did not make a sound. That scared me more than anything. It stopped halfway between the boxes and me, close enough that I could feel it. The air changed. It smelled dry, like old books. The shape leaned forward, its head tilted. I could not see a face, but I knew it was looking. The whisper came out slow, broken. "Wait," it said. The word scraped against my ears, like it didn't belong in a mouth. The other shape made a short sound, not a word. It finished opening the box. It reached inside. I squeezed my eyes shut, just for a second. When I opened them again, the toy was in its hands, the robot. Its metal body caught the green light, the red eyes, reflected faintly. The shape held it up, turned it. The robot's arm bent the wrong way, then snapped. The sound echoed inside my head. Snap. The arm fell to the floor. The second shape moved back toward the pile. It picked up another box. This one smaller, wrapped in red paper. It shook it once, hard. Something rattled inside, then went quiet. I could not stay still anymore. My body moved before my thoughts did. I pulled the blanket off my head. I sucked in air. "Stop," I whispered. The word barely came out. It felt useless. The shapes did not react, not even a pause. The first one twisted the robot's head, slow, careful. The plastic creaked, then locked backward. The robot was placed on the floor, facing the wall. I felt something wet on my cheeks. I did not remember starting to cry. The shapes kept working, box after box. They were not rushing. They were choosing. Each rip sounded different. Each tear had its own rhythm. The floor began to fill with shapes, toy parts, paper, pieces. The corner of my room looked broken now, like it had been pulled apart. I wanted my mother. I wanted the light. I wanted the sound of people. Any sound. Instead, the whisper came again, closer this time. "Almost," it said. I did not know what that meant. I did not want to know. The shape stepped closer to my bed. The mattress dipped near my feet. I pulled my knees up. My body shook. The green light flickered, once, then steadied. The shapes froze. Both of them. The room felt heavy, like something had entered it. Neither of them turned around. They listened again. I heard footsteps in the house. Adult footsteps. A door opened somewhere. A voice coughed. The shapes moved fast then, too fast. Paper flew back into place. Boxes slid together. Broken pieces disappeared under folds. The corner rebuilt itself. The robot was lifted, its arm placed back. The head was turned forward again, perfect. The shapes stepped backward, into the wall. They flattened, then vanished. The room was clean, too clean. My mother's voice called my name from the hall, soft, sleepy. I started sobbing then, loud. The door opened. Light rushed in. She knelt beside my bed. Her hands were warm. I pointed to the corner. I could not speak. She followed my finger. She frowned. "There's nothing there," she said gently. Her voice was calm. She touched the boxes. They did not move. The paper was smooth, unbroken. She sat with me until my breathing slowed. She did not leave right away. When she finally went back down the hall, she closed the door all the way this time. The green turtle glowed. The silence returned. I did not sleep. Not really. I stayed awake until morning light touched the wall, until birds made noise outside. When I finally drifted off, It was because my body gave up. The light in my room looked different in the morning. Too clean, too even. Sunlight came through the window and touched the boxes first. They stood exactly where they had been the night before. I sat up slowly. My body felt sore, like I had been holding myself tight for a long time. For a moment, I hoped it had all been a dream, that my mind had made it up. I climbed out of bed and walked to the corner. My feet felt cold on the floor. I touched the blue box on top. The paper was smooth, no rips, no dents. I pressed my finger into the ribbon. It held its shape. My chest felt hollow, like something was missing. I heard voices in the kitchen, plates clinking, a radio playing low. "Mateo," my mother called. "Come eat." I stayed where I was for a second longer. I listened. The house sounded normal, too normal. When I finally walked out, the hallway felt shorter than usual, like it had folded in on itself. My family sat around the table eating. Everyone looked tired but happy. My father smiled when he saw me. "Birthday boy," he said. I sat down quietly. My hand stayed in my lap. No one asked about the night. No one mentioned noise or crying. After breakfast, my mother went to my room. She brought the boxes out one by one. She stacked them in the living room, right in front of everyone. "Okay," she said, "time to open." People gathered around me, smiles, cameras. My hand shook when she passed me the blue box. I stared at it. "Go on," my aunt said. "What is it?" I pulled the ribbon loose. It came off too easily. The paper tore. The sound made my stomach flip. Inside was the robot. Silver, shiny. It looked perfect at first. Then I saw the head. It was turned the wrong way, all the way around. Someone laughed softly. "Looks funny," they said. I reached in and lifted it out. Something fell. The arm hit the floor. Plastic against tile. The room went quiet. Too fast. My mother frowned. She picked it up. "It's broken," she said. Her voice sounded unsure. My father took the robot and turned it gently. The head made a slow creaking sound. "It's twisted," he said, and the arm snapped. I looked at my mother. My mouth opened. Before I could speak, she held up her hand. She was staring at the floor. "Check the bag," I said quietly. My voice surprised me. She reached for the red gift bag. She tipped it over. Crayons spilled out, all broken. Each one snapped clean in half. No paper left whole. My grandmother crossed herself. She whispered something under her breath. My mother opened another box, then another. Every toy inside was wrong. Bent, cracked, dirty. One box spilled dirt onto the carpet. Dry, dark dirt. My father stood up. His chair scraped the floor. "That's enough," he said. His voice was tight. He brought out a trash bag. He didn't look at me. Everything went inside, even the unopened ones. The bag was tied and taken outside. I watched from the window. That afternoon, the house felt different, lighter. My mother cleaned my room twice. She wiped the walls, she burned sage. The smell filled the air. That night, the light stayed on. The closet door stayed closed. I slept, but not deeply. I listened. Years passed after that. The house changed. We moved eventually. New walls, new rooms. But the sound stayed with me. Paper tearing. I grew older. I learned how to open boxes carefully. I learned to pause before pulling tape. To listen. Now when my apartment is quiet, too quiet, I feel the same pause I felt back then. That held breath. I sit still. I wait. Because some things don't leave. They just learn how to hide. I didn't understand back then why my parents stopped talking about it. They never said it was nothing. They just stopped saying anything at all. Silence settled over it like dust. After that day, my room stayed cleaner than before. Too clean. My mother checked the corner every night before she kissed me. She did it without looking like she noticed she was doing it. The turtle nightlight stayed plugged in. even when I said I didn't need it. The closet door stayed shut, always. If I opened it during the day, she closed it again before bed. No words, just a soft click. Sometimes when she thought I was asleep, I heard her stand in the doorway. She didn't come in, she just stood there. I could feel it, even with my eyes closed. That paused again. At school, I stopped liking surprises. I didn't like gifts handed to me without warning. When teachers passed out papers face down, my stomach hurt. I didn't tell anyone why. I didn't have words for it. Ripping sounds made my shoulders tighten. Tape peeling, paper tearing. Birthday parties stayed loud, but they didn't feel safe anymore. At other kids' houses, I avoided gift tables. I stayed near adults. Once at a friend's party, I saw boxes stacked in a corner, and my heart started racing. I asked to go home early. I told my mom I felt sick. She didn't argue. She never did when it came to that. As I got older, the memory didn't fade. It changed. Some details blurred, but the feeling stayed sharp. The way the air felt heavier near the floor. The way light disappeared instead of landing. Sometimes when I lay awake at night, I tried to remember their faces. I never could. Just outlines. I wondered if they were kids once, real ones. That thought scared me more than anything else. I stopped thinking about it. When we moved houses, I hoped it would end. New rooms, new corners. The first night in the new place, I watched the walls until morning. Nothing happened. The silence felt normal. But weeks later, I heard it again. Not in my room. In the kitchen. Late. Crinkle. I froze at the top of the stairs. I was older then, old enough to know I should not go look. Old enough to know curiosity could be dangerous. The sound didn't repeat. It faded. I stayed still until it felt safe to move. I never told anyone. After that, it happened less. Years passed between moments. But every time, it was the same. Paper. Tape. Wrapping. Never footsteps. Never voices at first. Just preparation. Like something getting ready. Now, as an adult, I live in an apartment where space is tight. There are no yards. No parties. I control what comes into my home. I order things only when I have to. Packages sit unopened for hours sometimes. I tell myself I'm busy. Really, I'm listening. I wait for the pause. When I finally open a box, I do it slowly. I make sure I'm not tired. I make sure the lights are on. I check the corners first. Old habits. Sometimes nothing happens. Most of the time. But every now and then when the air feels wrong, I hear it. A soft shift. A sound like thin paper breathing. And I stop. I don't open anything because I learned something that night, even if I didn't understand it then. Whatever came into my room wasn't in a hurry. It didn't need to be. It knew the boxes would come back. Birthdays, deliveries, gifts. It knew people love surprises, and that paper is always waiting to be torn. There is a part of the night people don't talk about. The space between sounds. That is where my memory lives now. Not in the noise, but in the waiting. When I think back to that first night, I don't remember screaming anymore. I remember holding still. I remember learning how to listen without moving. How to tell the difference between quiet and pause. As I grew up, that skill stayed with me. It followed me into places it didn't belong. Sleepovers were hard. Other kids slept fast. I stayed awake, watching their walls, learning their houses. Every new room had to be studied. Corners first, closets second. I learned which homes felt thin, which ones felt full. Some places had corners that felt deeper than they should, like they went somewhere else when you weren't looking. I never told anyone that. It sounded wrong even in my head. My parents never asked me why I didn't like surprises anymore. They just adjusted. Gifts came in bags instead of boxes. Paper stayed loose. When tape had to be pulled, my mother did it for me. Slowly, carefully. I saw her hands shake once, just a little. She thought I didn't notice. I always noticed. That was when I understood she remembered too. Maybe not the same way I did, but enough. Years later, when I moved out for the first time, the silence scared me more than noise ever had. Apartments hum at night, pipes, air. distant traffic. When that hum stops, it feels wrong. I learned to leave a fan on, a soft sound to fill the space. Even then, there are moments when everything goes still, too still. That's when my body remembers before my mind does. My breath slows, my hands tighten. I think about the way the paper rebuilt itself, how nothing was out of place. That part stays with me the most. Not the breaking, the care. Whatever came into my room that night knew how things should look. It knew how people expect gifts to be. It understood surprise, understood disappointment. Sometimes when I'm alone and the apartment is quiet, I imagine boxes stacked just out of sight. Not in my living room, not in my closet, somewhere closer, somewhere patient. I don't know if it needs me to open anything anymore. I don't know if it ever did. Maybe it only wanted me to notice, to remember. Because memory is a kind of opening too. You tear into it whether you want to or not. I still hate the sound of ripping paper. I still close my closet door. And every night before I sleep, I take a moment to listen to the room, not for noise, for the pause. Because if the air ever feels like it's holding its breath again, I know what that means. It means something is close, close enough to wait. And I lie there, very still, wondering whether the night is finished with me or whether it is simply patient, letting years pass the way hands pass over wrapping paper, slow and careful, waiting for the exact moment when I stop paying attention, when I forget to listen, when I finally believe that nothing is there anymore. The first time it happened again, I was 16. I didn't connect it right away. I had spent years training myself not to. By then, my life looked normal from the outside. School, friends, noise, plans. That summer, I shared a room with my younger cousin. The house was full again. Family slept everywhere. Couches, floors, spare mattresses. Noise should have made me feel safe. It didn't. Late that night, long after everyone settled, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The fan hummed at the foot of the bed. My cousin breathed slowly beside me, deep, even breaths. I was almost asleep when the sound came. Not loud. A careful pull. Tape loosening. My eyes opened before my thoughts did. My body already knew. The sound came from the hallway closet, the one where we kept old coats and boxes. Boxes. My chest tightened. I counted my breaths. The house stayed still. No footsteps, no whispers, just that slow, patient sound. Peel. Pause. Peel. I told myself it was someone awake. An uncle. An aunt. I almost believed it. Almost. Then the pause came. That held breath again. The space between sounds. The fan kept spinning. The house did not. I sat up slowly. The mattress barely moved. My cousin didn't wake. His breathing didn't change. The sound stopped. Not finished. Listening. I didn't look toward the door. I had learned better. I stayed still and waited. Minutes stretched. Then the sound resumed. Closer. It wasn't ripping this time. It was folding. Paper pressed flat. Smoothed. My throat felt dry. I swallowed. The hallway floor creaked softly. Once, something shifted weight. Careful. I thought about waking someone. Anyone. But my voice felt far away. Unreachable. The sound moved past the doorway. Toward the living room. Toward where the gifts from that weekend still sat. Graduation presents. I closed my eyes. I didn't want to see. I heard the smallest sound of all then. A breath. Not mine. Not human. It lasted just a second. Then nothing. In the morning, everything looked fine. The gifts were untouched. No paper out of place. No tape loose. I didn't say anything. I learned not to. Years passed after that. College. Jobs. Apartments that were too small to hold parties. Rooms without corners that felt deep. I told myself I had outgrown it. That fear belongs to childhood. Then one night, in my first apartment alone, I ordered a desk. It arrived in a long, thin box. Heavy. I dragged it inside and leaned it against the wall. I told myself I'd open it tomorrow. That night, I slept badly, dreamless. I woke before dawn to silence. Not the normal kind. The fan was off. The fridge wasn't humming. The air felt pressed together, dense. Then I heard it. Right beside me. Crinkle. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The sound came again, closer. Peel. The box was in the living room. I knew that. The sound was in my bedroom. At the foot of the bed, I felt the mattress dip. Just a little. I thought about screaming. I thought about running. Neither felt possible. The sound changed then. Not paper, wood. A slow scrape. Something being tested. I stared at the ceiling until my eyes burned. I waited. After a long time, the pressure lifted. The air loosened. The fridge hummed back to life. The world restarted. In the morning, the box was still sealed. Perfect. I opened it with shaking hands. Nothing inside was broken, but one piece was missing. Just one. I never found it. After that, I stopped ordering things. I stopped bringing boxes home. I told people I didn't like clutter, that I preferred minimal spaces. The truth was simpler. I didn't want to give it places to wait. Some nights I still hear the pause, that quiet inhale. I know now it isn't tied to birthdays or gifts. It's tied to attention, to moments when things are meant to be opened, curiosity, expectation. I think it learned me when I was 4, learned how I wait, learned how I listen, and now, even years later, even far from that first house, I still feel it sometimes, standing just outside the edge of my hearing, patient, waiting for the moment I forget why I'm afraid of boxes, waiting for the moment I decide to open something without listening first. I don't know what happens when it finishes. I don't know what it takes. I only know that every time the air holds its breath, I hold mine too. And I wonder if this is the night I finally stop waiting, or the night it decides it has waited long enough. The last time it happened was quiet enough that I almost missed it. I was already in bed, lights off, fan on low. The day had been long. My mind felt dull, heavy. I remember thinking that maybe I had finally learned how to live around it, how to keep my life smooth enough that nothing caught. Sleep was close, close enough to touch. That was when the fan stopped. Not slowly, not with a click. It just wasn't there anymore. The silence pressed in right away, full, tight. I opened my eyes. The room looked the same, shadows in their places, but the air felt different, thicker near the floor. I didn't move. I listened. There it was, not ripping, not peeling, folding, a slow press, like hands smoothing something flat, careful hands. The sound came from the corner near my closet. The door was closed. I hadn't opened it all day. The sound stopped. Paused. That held breath again. My chest tightened. I counted. 1, 2. The sound returned, closer now, right at the foot of the bed. The mattress dipped, barely. I stared at the ceiling. I didn't blink. The air grew cold along my legs. Not freezing, just empty. I thought about everything I had learned. Every night I had waited instead of acted. I thought about the boxes I never opened, the things I left untouched. The sound shifted, paper sliding. Then a whisper. Not words, not really. Just breath shaped like language. Close to my ear. I didn't understand it, but I knew what it wanted. The tension, the pause stretched. Longer than before. My heart hammered slow and loud. I felt the moment balancing, waiting for me, or waiting on me. I could sit up. I could turn the light on. I could finally look. Or I could stay still. Like I always had, the sound softened. Almost kind. The mattress dipped a little more, as if something leaned closer. I closed my eyes. Not tight, just enough. I focused on my breathing. In, out. The air held, then loosened. The pressure faded slowly, like hands pulling away. When the fan hummed back on, I didn't move. I stayed there until morning light crept across the wall, until the room felt like a room again. Nothing was out of place. Nothing ever is. I don't know if that was the end, or if it was a test. I don't know whether staying still saved me, or simply taught it that patience still works. Now when I lie awake at night, I listen, not for sound, for the space before it. Because if the air ever pauses again, if the room feels like it's waiting, I know I'll have to decide whether to keep living the way I have, quiet and careful, or finally open something and see what has been waiting all this time. And every night, right before sleep takes me, I wonder which choice will come first. Story number 5. I want to slow this down, because when I think back on that house, the fear is not loud. It never was. It sat quietly in the corners like dust you don't notice until light hits it just right. After that night with the doll, Chloe stopped sleeping on the bottom bunk. She insisted on switching with me, even though she was always scared of heights. She said the floor felt colder now. She said she could feel it through the mattress, like the room was breathing from underneath. I didn't argue. I didn't want to be closer to the closet anyway. The attic door stayed shut after that. My stepdad nailed a small hook latch onto it a few days later. He said it was for safety, so no one would fall through the ceiling. He laughed when he said it, but he didn't look at us when he did. He worked quietly, hammer tapping the wood in slow, careful beats. Tap, tap, tap. Every sound in that house felt louder after that. Not sharper, just heavier, like the walls were listening. Chloe and I stopped playing pretend games in our room. We stopped singing. We stopped leaving toys out. Everything went into bins under the bed where we could see them, where nothing could move without us knowing. At night, we lay awake and listened. The closet never made noise like a monster would. There were no bangs, no scratches, no voices calling our names. It was worse than that. It was silent in a way that felt intentional, like it was waiting for us to forget. Some nights the cold came back. It would start near the closet wall, then slowly spread across the room. Not fast enough to scream, just enough to notice. Chloe would kick my mattress from below when she felt it. A small signal. I would tap back. We never spoke. Speaking felt like an invitation. Ben pretended nothing was wrong, but he stopped teasing us. He stopped sneaking into our room to scare us. He started keeping his door closed at night, even though he used to sleep with it open. Once, I heard him praying. It was late. I'd gone to the bathroom and passed his room. His door was cracked, just a little. I heard his voice, quiet and rushed, like he was afraid of being overheard. "I didn't mean to," he said. "I didn't know. Please." I didn't ask him about it in the morning. I already knew better than to pull at things that wanted to stay buried. The dreams came more often after that. They were never dramatic. No chasing. No screaming. Just repetition. The same room. The same cold. The same crying sound coming from behind the attic door. Soft and tired like it had been crying for years. In the dreams, I never saw the girl clearly. Just pieces. A hand gripping the wood. Bare feet on insulation. Hair stuck to a damp cheek. Always turned away, like she was ashamed to be seen, and always that feeling. Not anger, not hunger, loneliness. I woke up with my fists clenched, nails pressed into my palms, like I had been holding something shut. When we finally moved out of the Miller house, I didn't feel relief right away. I felt watched leaving, like the house noticed, like it understood what was happening and didn't like it. As the moving truck pulled away, I looked back at the upstairs window, the one that lined up with our room. The curtain moved, not fast, just enough. My mom told me it was the wind. I nodded. I had learned how to do that by then. Years passed, childhood filled in the gaps the house left behind. School, friends, first crushes, noise, life. For a long time, the memory faded into something manageable, something that stayed in the past where it belonged, until I became a mother. My son was 4 when he started talking to corners, not imaginary friends, corners. He would sit on the floor and whisper toward the wall like someone was just out of sight. When I asked him who he was talking to, he shrugged. "She's cold," he said once. "She doesn't like the light." I laughed it off. I bought night lights. I told myself kids say strange things. But the sound of paper ripping still made my stomach drop. Gift wrap, tape, plastic seals, anything that broke quietly in the dark pulled me straight back to that closet, to that repeating line, to the feeling that something was trying to explain itself the only way it knew how. "Yes, I am a girl like you." When my son said it years later in that same rhythm, I didn't correct him. I picked him up. I held him close, and I made sure every door in my house was closed before night fell. The memory doesn't scream at me anymore. It hums, low, patient, like it knows time doesn't matter, like it knows someone will listen eventually. The night I asked myself that question, I did not sleep. I lay on my back and watched the ceiling fan turn slow and uneven, like it might give up at any moment. Each rotation felt counted, measured. The house was quiet in the way only old houses get, when every sound has already happened once and is deciding if it should happen again. I told myself I was safe. I told myself this was not the Miller house. Different walls, different floor, different air. I said it in my head the way you say things when you don't fully believe them yet. My son slept on the couch that night, curled into the corner, his thumb in his mouth. I didn't move him. I wanted him close. I wanted to hear him breathe. In, out, slow and steady. Around 2 in the morning, the air changed. Not cold, not warm, just thinner. Like something had been opened far away and the house was adjusting. The ceiling creaked once, long and low. Then again, shuffle, shuffle. I sat up. The sound came from above me, directly above, from the spot where the old closet would have been if the room still lined up the same way in my memory. I held my breath. The shuffling stopped. The silence after it felt stretched, pulled too tight, like paper before it tears. I waited for fear to spike. It didn't. What came instead was something dull and heavy, recognition. I stood and walked to the stairs. I did not turn on the light. I did not need to. The house knew where I was going. The steps creaked under my weight, one by one, like they were reminding me of each step I had taken before, years ago. Smaller feet, quicker breath. At the top of the stairs I stopped. The hallway was dark. The air smelled old. Not dirty, just used. The way old books smell when you open them after a long time. The door to the upstairs bedroom was closed. I hadn't closed it. I stood there and listened. No singing, no crying. Just the faintest sound, almost not there at all. Paper. Not ripping, not yet. Just shifting, like someone touching it, testing the edge, deciding where to start. My hand hovered over the doorknob. I did not turn it. I rested my palm against the wood instead. It was cold, colder than the rest of the house. "I know," I whispered without thinking. The sound stopped. For a moment, the hallway felt empty again, like I had imagined it all, like memory had reached forward and played a trick on me. Then, from behind the door, very softly, came a sound I hadn't heard in years. Not words. Breathing. Slow. Careful. Waiting. I stepped back, just one step. That was all I could manage. The floor creaked, and the breathing paused, as if listening right back. I did not open the door that night. I went downstairs. I sat on the floor beside my son and watched the windows fade from black to gray as morning came. When the sun finally rose, the house felt ordinary again, harmless, almost embarrassed. When I checked the upstairs room later, it was empty. Clean. No toys, no paper, no sign anyone had been there at all. But the closet was colder than the rest of the room, and the attic hatch, the one I had never noticed before, was unlocked. I locked it. I locked it twice, and even now, years later, I still catch myself listening when I open anything wrapped too neatly. A box. A gift, a drawer that was not mine. Because some things do not want to be unwrapped. Some things want you to come closer first. I didn't tell anyone about that night. Not my mom, not my friends, not even my son's father. Some things feel smaller when you say them out loud, and I wasn't ready for this to shrink. I needed it to stay real, heavy, untouched. After that, I stopped using the upstairs room completely. I shut the door and stacked boxes in front of it. Old clothes, books I never read, things I wouldn't miss if they were ruined. The door stayed closed and the house seemed to accept that, the way people do when they realize pushing won't work anymore. Life moved forward the way it always does. My son grew older. He forgot about the girl on the wall, or at least he stopped talking about her. I told myself that meant she was gone, or resting, or satisfied. I told myself a lot of things, but fear doesn't leave all at once. It settles into habits, into small rules you don't realize you're following until someone asks why. Why do you check the closet before bed? Why do you open boxes so slowly? Why do you flinch when paper tears? I never had good answers. Years later, after I moved again, far from Oak Haven, I thought the distance might help. New town, new house, no attic, no crawl spaces, just clean drywall and bright light. The first few months were quiet. Then one night, while unpacking, I found an old box I didn't remember sealing. It was small, too neat, wrapped in plain brown paper and tied with string. My name was written on it, not in my handwriting. I stood there holding it, feeling 8 years old again, feeling that same weight in my stomach, the same sense that whatever was inside had been waiting patiently. Not angry, just hopeful. I didn't open it. I put it in the garage. I pushed it behind paint cans and tools. I told myself I would deal with it later. Later never came. Sometimes, late at night, I hear a sound from the garage. Not footsteps, not voices, just paper shifting. Just the softest hum, barely there. Repeating a rhythm my body remembers even when my mind wants to forget. Yes, I am a girl. I sit still when that happens. I hold my breath. I don't check. I don't answer. Because I learned something in that house all those years ago. Some things aren't trapped, they're waiting. I did not throw the box away. That part matters. For weeks, it sat in the garage exactly where I left it. I parked around it. I stacked things near it without touching it. I learned the shape of it in my peripheral vision, the way you learn the shape of a bruise you don't want to press. Nothing happened at first. No sounds. No humming. No paper shifting. That almost felt worse. I told myself it was empty, or a mistake, or something I boxed up years ago and forgot. I told myself a lot of reasonable things, the kind adults use to make the night feel smaller. Then one evening, my son asked me a question while I was making dinner. Why does the garage get cold? He said. I didn't answer right away. I stirred the pot. I listened to the house breathe. It's just concrete, I said. It holds cold. He nodded like that made sense. Then he added very quietly, she doesn't like it when it's warm. I dropped the spoon. When I turned around, he was already walking away, dragging his fingers along the wall like he always did when he was tired. He didn't look scared. He didn't look curious. He looked familiar. That night I dreamed of paper, not ripping, folding, careful hands smoothing creases, tucking corners, making things neat again. In the dream, I could hear breathing close to my ear, slow and pleased, like someone proud of their work. I woke up before dawn. The house was silent, too silent. No fridge hum, no pipes, no distant traffic. I got out of bed and stood in the hallway listening. From the garage, I heard it, not singing, counting, soft, off rhythm, like someone who had learned numbers late and never quite trusted them. 1, 2, 2, 1. I didn't call out. I didn't wake my son. I walked to the garage door and stopped with my hand on the knob. It was cold, not the metal, the air around it. I thought about the closet, the latch, the way the attic door never stayed shut the first time. I thought about the doll's voice, repeating the same line because it didn't know how else to say it. Yes, I am a girl like you. I opened the door. The garage light flickered on by itself, the way old lights sometimes do when they're already deciding. The box sat where it always had, but it was closer, not dragged, not tilted, just closer. The string around it was tighter now, the knot more careful. Someone had retied it. I stood there and felt something shift inside me. Not fear, not yet. Responsibility. I know, I said again, just like before. I didn't forget. The counting stopped. I stepped forward. Each step felt heavy, like the floor wanted me to notice it. When I knelt in front of the box, my knees touched concrete cold enough to sting. My name was still there. The handwriting was better up close. Neater than mine had ever been at 8 years old. Patient, practiced. I touched the string. The moment my finger pressed into it, the garage door behind me closed. Not slammed, closed. I didn't turn around. I untied the knot. The paper didn't tear when I lifted it. It unfolded, each crease released with a soft sound like a sigh. Inside the box was another box, smaller, wrapped in pink paper that had faded with time. I knew that paper. My chest tightened. I opened it. Inside was a doll. Not the same one. Older, heavier. Cloth instead of plastic. The face was worn smooth like it had been held too often. The dress was handmade, stitched unevenly, with thread that didn't quite match. Pinned to the chest was a small paper tag. It read asterisk Embley. Below that, in smaller letters, almost shy, asterisk for Blay asterisk. The air in the garage shifted. I felt it at my back, close enough to warm the space between my shoulders. I don't play like that anymore, I said. Something moved behind me, not fast, not slow, just enough. I know, came the voice. It wasn't electronic. It wasn't young. It sounded tired. I waited. I stayed where I was, kneeling, holding the doll like it might fall apart if I stood. You scared me, I said. The words surprised me. They came out soft, honest. You scared my sister, my brother, my son. Silence. Then, closer now, you left. I swallowed. You weren't alone, I said. You didn't have to stay. I did, the voice said. They closed the door. I thought of the latch, the hook, the way adults seal things without thinking who's inside. The garage light flickered again. I don't want to hurt anyone, I said. I don't want to hurt, the voice replied. The floor creaked. I felt a presence kneel beside me. Not touching, just there. Cold air pressed against my arm, steady and familiar. Then what do you want? I asked. The answer came so close, I felt it against my ear. To be finished. I closed my eyes. Behind my lids, I saw the attic, the insulation, the small shape curled into itself, waiting for someone to notice it long enough to stop being alone. I opened my eyes and looked at the doll. The stitches were loose in places. One arm was barely attached. I can't keep you, I said. I know. I can't open doors anymore, I added. I know. The garage door clicked, unlocked. I stood up slowly. My knees shook. I carried the doll to the door, opened it, and stepped into the early morning air. The sky was pale, empty, quiet. At the edge of the driveway, I stopped. I will remember, I said. That's all I can promise. The cold lifted. Not gone, just lighter. I placed the doll on the concrete and stepped back. The air felt normal again, heavy with dew, ordinary. I went inside. When I looked back, the doll was gone. Years have passed since then. My son doesn't talk about girls and walls anymore. I open boxes without shaking most days. The garage stays warm, but sometimes when I fold paper, I feel it. That careful pause, that patience. And I wonder if being finished really means being gone. Or just being seen long enough to stop waiting. I don't check the attic doors anymore. I just make sure nothing is closed too tightly. And I listen. Time didn't fix everything. It just softened the edges. Some mornings, I still wake up with the sense that I forgot something important. Not like missing keys or an appointment. More like leaving a light on in a room you don't use anymore. The feeling fades once the day begins, but it always starts the same way, with a quiet pressure behind my ribs. I stopped keeping dolls in the house after that. Not as a rule. It just happened. When my son asked for action figures or stuffed animals, I felt fine, but anything with a face too close to human made my skin tighten. I couldn't explain it, and I didn't try. The garage stayed empty after that night. I didn't park there anymore. I didn't store things there. It became a space I passed through, never lingered in. Concrete and echoes only, nothing to hold on to. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear sounds that don't belong anywhere. Not loud, not clear, just almost. A hum that isn't a song, a shift in the air that doesn't come from vents or weather. When that happens, I sit still and let it pass. I don't speak to it. I don't invite it. I don't shut it out either. That feels important. My son grew older. He forgot the words he used when he was little. He forgot the fear. Children are good at that. They shed things the way adults never quite manage to. When he talks about his childhood now, he talks about parks and friends and snacks he liked too much. Not the closet, not the girl. I let him forget. But I remember, not as a story I tell, or a warning I pass down, just as something that lives quietly in me, like a scar you only notice when the weather changes. I still don't like the sound of paper tearing. I still open gifts slowly. And sometimes, when I'm alone, I catch myself folding scraps of paper more carefully than I need to. Smoothing creases, making sure corners line up, making things neat again. I don't know where she went. I don't know if she finished what she needed to finish, or if finishing is something that ever really ends. I only know that the waiting stopped feeling sharp after that night. It stopped pressing so hard against the walls of my life. That feels like something. Enough, maybe. But on quiet evenings, when the house settles and the lights are low, I listen anyway. Not for singing, not for crying, just for the space between sounds. Because some things don't ask to be opened. They just want to know someone noticed the door. There are nights when I sit at the kitchen table long after everyone else has gone to bed. The house settles around me in small, polite sounds, wood adjusting, pipes sighing, the refrigerator clicking off. Normal things that prove the place is still alive. I leave one light on, not because I'm afraid of the dark, but because I don't like the way rooms feel when they are sealed too completely. Light feels like a courtesy, like saying someone is welcome to pass through but not to stay. I think about Oak Haven sometimes, about the Miller house and the way history clung to it. And my mom used to say houses remember people longer than people remember houses. I didn't believe her then. I believe her now. That's what people get wrong when they imagine things like that. It didn't scream, it didn't chase, it waited. Waiting was its whole shape. I wonder how long that girl waited before I ever lived there. I wonder how many footsteps passed under that hatch without stopping. How many doors closed because it felt easier than asking why they were open. Those thoughts come and go. I don't follow them too far. Life fills the space if you let it. Work, dishes, birthdays that don't feel heavy, normal noise, normal mess, the kind that belongs to the present. My son is taller than I am now. His voice is lower. When he visits, he hugs me like he's checking that I'm still here. Sometimes as he's leaving, he pauses at the door and looks back at the hallway like he's listening for something he can't quite place. "Everything okay?" I ask. "Yeah," he says, "just quiet." I nod. Quiet can mean a lot of things. After he leaves, I lock the door, then unlock it again. Just once. I don't like the click of final sounds. I don't like the feeling of things being decided too firmly. Before bed, I walk through the house. I check windows, I check rooms, not searching. Just noticing, making sure everything has room to breathe. When I pass the closets, I don't look inside. I don't need to. They're just closets now. Wood and shelves and coats that smell like laundry soap. Still, I never pushed the doors all the way shut. That habit stayed with me. Sometimes I think that's the only thing she asked for in the end. Not to be played with. Not to be followed. Just not to be closed away without thought. The world is full of doors like that. Small ones. Easy to miss. Easy to shut. I try to be careful. When I turn off the lights at night, I pause for a moment in the dark. I listen. Not for a voice. Not for a hum. Just for the feeling of the house settling around me. Comfortable enough to sleep. And when I finally lie down, I let my hands rest open on the blankets. I don't clench them anymore. I don't hold anything shut. I let the night pass the way it wants to. Quietly. Slowly. Unfinished. But no longer waiting. Story number 6. I keep my apartment bright. Not cheerful bright. Just bright enough that shadows don't collect. At night, the city helps me. Streetlights hum. Elevators groan. Someone is always awake somewhere. Silence doesn't get a chance to sit down. I wasn't always like this. I used to sleep anywhere. Floors, cars, couch cushions that smelled like old soda. Then there was one year when sleep learned my name. I was 7 when my mother decided we needed a reset. She didn't use that word. She said cheaper, quieter, temporary. Those words sounded harmless then. The place sat where pavement gave up. One road ended, and after that there was dirt, weeds, and a line of trees that never looked the same twice. The building wasn't a house. It wasn't quite a trailer either. It was something in between, pretending. Metal walls hold cold differently. They don't keep it out. They store it, even in summer. The air inside felt borrowed. My sister Mara was older, not old enough to protect me, but old enough to notice things adults missed. She stopped asking questions out loud before I did. Her doorway didn't have a door. Instead, she hung strings. Plastic loops, dull pink, threaded into long chains. They clicked together when you passed through, like cheap rain. The sound was soft. That's what made it worse. At first, it was only when Mara moved. She paced when she was thinking. She paced when she was angry. Click, touch, slide. Later, the sound learned how to happen by itself. Our mother worked evenings. She said it was temporary, too. Everything was temporary that year. Dinner became whatever could be eaten with one hand. Some nights, Mara would sit on her bed and listen, not reading, not drawing, just listening. Her eyes followed the doorway like it might blink. "Do you hear that?" she asked once. I didn't then. I said no. I wanted that to be true. The woods started close, not scenic, not friendly. They felt like they had been paused mid-movement. There was a narrow path kids had made over time. Broken branches, a tire sunk halfway into mud. Someone had dragged a small plastic play shed out there long ago. It leaned to one side. The roof bowed in. It smelled like old water and something sweet turning bad. Mara liked it there. She said the trees made it quiet in a way rooms couldn't. I didn't like how sound disappeared so fast. One afternoon, she told me a story. Not to scare me. She said that clearly. Her voice stayed flat the whole time. She said some people don't leave when they're done. They stay close to places where they were almost something else. They learn routines. I didn't like stories about learning things. That night, I woke up standing, bare feet on cold linoleum, my hands shaking like they belonged to someone older. My mother said my name until it fit back into me. The doctor called them night terrors. He smiled while he said it, like naming a bug. Bugs don't watch you from doorways. Mara stopped sleeping with the lights off. Then she stopped sleeping at all. She sat cross-legged on her bed, counting under her breath. The clicking started changing. It wasn't a brush anymore. It sounded deliberate. One click. Pause. Another. I pressed my pillow over my ears. It didn't help. The sound came through bone. Once, I thought I heard weight behind it. Not footsteps. Just pressure. like someone leaning where they shouldn't. Our mother said the building shifted at night. Metal cooling, wood settling. She didn't look at Mara when she said it. The first fire came from nowhere. That's how everyone described it. Like surprise itself had teeth. The woods burned fast. Dry things always do. The little plastic shed folded in on itself, shrinking before it melted. I remember the heat on my face, the way the air felt juiced up. Mara didn't cry. After that, the sounds got closer. Not louder, just nearer. Distance is a comfort until it leaves. Sometimes the clicking came with another sound. Fabric moving, breath where breath shouldn't be. I learned to stay very still. Stillness felt like hiding. Hiding felt smart. I don't remember deciding to stop sleeping. I remember realizing I hadn't slept. There's a difference, Mara whispered at night. Not prayers, not words. Instructions. Don't answer. Don't look first. Don't stand up. I didn't ask who she was talking to. The second fire showed us the truth without explaining it. Big flames make liars honest. People run when they're afraid of being seen. I saw a man-shaped absence at the edge of light. Not hidden, not rushing, waiting. Mara didn't point this time. She didn't need to. After we left, no one used the word temporary again. We just moved. Quietly. Quickly. Years passed the way they always do. Unevenly. I learned how to lock doors without thinking. I forgot the woods. I forgot the building. I remembered the sound. Plastic against plastic. Soft enough to excuse. Clear enough to know better. When I stopped numbing myself years later, sleep returned cautiously, like it wanted proof. Dreams came back first. In the dreams, I'm always in a hallway. Not running. Not trapped. Waiting to decide. There's a doorway ahead. No door. Just hanging loops. They move when nothing touches them. I wake before I see what's behind them. That feels intentional. Like a favor. I called Mara after the dream started repeating. We talked around the year before we talked about it. Memory needs warming. She told me things I hadn't been old enough to know. Things that explained the weight. Not the sound. Some people don't haunt houses. They haunt habits. They haunt sleep. I keep lights on now. I don't mind the cost. Dark is expensive in other ways. The city clicks too. Elevators, turnstiles, trains, but none of it sounds like plastic rain. Still, sometimes when a breeze hits the wrong thing, a shower curtain, a wind chime, a bag in a doorway, my body decides before I do. I stop. I listen. I wait to see if it happens again. I learned later that fear can be patient. It doesn't rush you. It waits until you think you're done remembering. Mara told me the man never spoke. Not once. Silence was part of how he stayed. She said the nights followed a pattern, always after our mother slept, always before the house settled. The beads moved first, not a swing, a parting. Then the floor answered. One slow sound, like weight being tested, as if the ground itself was deciding. Mara said she kept her eyes closed. She counted breaths that weren't hers. She learned how long a minute could stretch. I asked why she never screamed. She paused before answering. Said screaming teaches people where you are. That answer stayed with me. It explains a lot. It explains why my voice disappears when I'm afraid. I asked her why he left without touching us. Why only watching? Why only waiting? She didn't know. Or maybe she did and didn't want to shape it with words. Some thoughts feel heavier once named. After the fires, everything made sense too fast. Adults rushed to organize meaning. Kids were expected to follow. No one asked what we heard. They asked what we saw. Sound is harder to argue with. The woods were cleared months later. Bird trees cut down. The ground smooth like it never held secrets. But secrets don't need places. They adapt. They travel. Mara said something once before we stopped talking for a while. She said he liked the doorway best. Not the room, not the bed, the place between, where permission is unclear, where crossing can feel accidental. That's the part I still think about. Doorways. things meant to separate but don't. I notice them everywhere now. Curtains, beads, shadows that hang instead of fall. I don't live near woods. I don't live near old places, but I still listen before I move. Sometimes at night, my apartment makes a sound. Plastic shifting, air moving through something hollow. I don't panic. I don't run. I sit very still. I wait to hear if it happens twice, because once can be nothing. Twice is a choice. When it doesn't repeat, I breathe again, slowly, like I'm teaching my body a lesson it missed. Mara and I talk more now, not often, but honestly. We don't use names for him. We don't give him shape. We don't give him more time. Some things end because they are stopped. Others end because they are understood. I don't know which this was. I just know I survived it without knowing. And now I know without reliving it. That feels like progress. Still, when I walk past novelty shops with hanging decorations or bead curtains swaying in door frames, my feet slow down. I tell myself I'm not 7. I tell myself the locks are solid. I tell myself I'm awake. And most nights that's enough. But every once in a while, when the air moves just right, I remember how sound can enter a room before anything else does. I didn't expect memory to change shape. I thought it would stay sharp or fade. I didn't know it could soften and still hurt. After that call, I stopped avoiding certain sounds. I stopped drowning them out. I let them exist. I bought a small strip of plastic beads online. Purple. The same kind. I hung them in my apartment doorway. Not because I liked them, because I needed to see what happened. The first night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch with the lights on. I watched the doorway. Nothing moved. Nothing touched them. They were just plastic. The second night, I turned off one light, left the others on, halfway brave. Still nothing. No sound. No movement. On the third night, I fell asleep by accident, just for a few minutes. My body betrayed me. I woke up to a sound. Click. Not the full sound. Just one bead touching another, like a test. My heart didn't race. It waited. The beads didn't part. They didn't sway. This settled. That's when I understood something important. Fear remembers patterns. Safety has to relearn them. The sound didn't mean someone was there. It meant air moved. It meant I was alive in a place that breathed. I took the beads down the next morning, not because I was afraid, because I didn't need them anymore. Don't think confronting fear is about being brave. I think it's about staying present long enough to notice when the threat doesn't return. What happened to us was real. What stayed with us was real too. But it didn't get to decide everything. I still check locks. I still prefer light. I still listen before I move. But now, when I hear plastic shift or a floor answer wait, I don't turn it into a monster. I ask a simpler question. Is this happening now? Most of the time, the answer is no. There is something strange about peace. It doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up quietly in moments where fear expects to speak and finds nothing waiting. Months passed with no fires, no footsteps, no beads. But something else changed. I stopped flinching when someone stood behind me. I stopped mapping exits in every room. I stopped listening for weight on the floor, not all at once. Slowly, like frost melting without a sound, I visited my mother that winter. She was baking like she always does when she's nervous. The house smelled like sugar and butter. We sat at the kitchen table, the same kind of table but stronger. She looked older and softer, tired in a way that felt earned. I should have known, she said suddenly. No build-up, no warning. I should have known something was wrong. I told her the truth, the part children never say. You did the best you could, I said, and when you knew, you ran. She cried then, not loud, not broken, just relieved. That was the last piece I didn't realize I was carrying. Her guilt wasn't mine anymore. On the drive home, I passed a roadside stand. Wind chimes hung from the roof, plastic ones. They clicked together in the breeze, soft and random. I didn't stop the car. I didn't tense. I noticed them and kept going. That night, I slept without dreams. Not darkness, not blankness, just rest. I don't think evil disappears when it's named. I think it loses its hiding places. Brad doesn't exist as a shape anymore. Not boots, not smoke, just a fact. A closed chapter, and chapters end whether we revisit them or not. Sometimes I still wake at night. Habit, memory. I listen. Nothing answers. That's when I know I'm home. Morning came without effort. Light found the room on its own. For years, waking up meant checking doors, windows, corners. That habit loosened slowly, like a knot worked free by time and not force. I started walking again, not in parks or near trails, just sidewalks and concrete, places where sound behaved. Still, sometimes trees made me uneasy. Not fear, recognition. They stand still. They watch without eyes. That part never really leaves. One afternoon, I met Alice for coffee. We sat near the window. People passed by outside carrying bags, laughing, arguing. She stirred her cup too much. The spoon clicked against the mug. I used to count his steps, she said suddenly. From the back door to my bed. I didn't ask how many. I already knew. We talked about small things after that. Her job. My girlfriend. The ordinary stitched itself back into place. Before we left, Alice touched my wrist. Not tightly, just enough. You were never weak, she said. You were just little. That stayed with me. Weeks later, I helped my girlfriend move. Boxes, tape. That sound again. Rip. Peel. I paused once. Just once. She noticed and waited. Then I kept going. Nothing crawled out of the cardboard. Nothing hid inside. Sometimes survival looks like that. Doing the thing anyway. Letting the moment pass. I don't tell this story often, not because it's unbelievable, because it's quiet now. And quiet deserves respect. Some nights, when the city hums just right, I sit by the window and listen. No boots, no beads, no breath in the dark, only traffic, only life. And when I finally turn off the lights, the dark stays where it belongs.